Good evening, everyone. So, today we are going to start the chapter Life Processes. So, before going to start the chapter, we should know some basic things. So, students, let me give the answer. How do we tell the difference between the what is alive and what is not alive? So, you know the things, the living organisms, so they perform some activities like reproduction and movement, and they perform very different activities which are not present in the non-living or non-living things, right? So also we can say that the living organisms, they perform the growth, movement and respiration. So these all characters we can observe in the living organisms. Then what about the plants? How do you say the plants are alive? So plants, they are not showing the visible movements, and visible growth is not there. But how we can say the plants also are the living organisms? So we can say the plants, they move towards the light, right? So that is called as a phototropism. So they are able to move where the sunlight is available. So in this video we can say that the plants are moving towards the light, that is called as a phototropism, right? Then plants also show the growth, but the growth is observed in a certain period of time. So we can't observe within a day or within an hour, the growth is not observable, but we can observe the growth in a period of time, like within a 1 month or within a 10 days or 30 days, like that. So observing these all characters, like plants also show the movement, plants also do the respiration, but which is not visible, and they are also show the growth. So by observing these all things, we can say plants are alive, right? Then what about these animals? Observe these pictures and observe the first picture and second picture. So in both the pictures, so if you observe the organism directly, we can't say these organisms are living or non-living. Why? Because see the first picture here, the animal is not showing the any movement, and respiration is also not observable here. In the crocodile also, so it looks like a dead organism, right? But observing only these features like movement and other things, growth, we can't say the organism is living or non-living. So these observing these pictures also, we can't say the organism is living or non-living. Then so what we should consider other than the respiration, movement and growth, other than these characters, what we should consider for the organism is living or non-living? So we should consider some movement of the molecules which takes place inside our body. So not only external characters, so we should see some inside characters like movement of the molecules. So these movement of the molecules are very necessary for the life. So not only by observing the respiration, movement and the other things, we can't say the organism is living or non-living. So we should observe some internal features like molecular movements. Then why these molecular movements are necessary for the life? So how we are saying these movements are necessary for life? For example, the living organisms, so they are having the well organized structures, like, right? They have the tissues and cells and the uh, some smaller components also. But sometimes what happens due to the environmental factors, these cells or tissues may get damaged. So to repair these features, so there is a need of the movements of the molecules. For example, so if we take the cell, so this is a cell. So in this cell, so some essential molecules are moving inside, which are not observable, and some essential, non-essential molecules are moving outside. But these all are not observable by our naked eyes, right? So, but these movements are required. These movement of the molecules are required for the maintaining the life. So we can say that the molecular movements also very important to say the living organisms are alive or dead. So then what are life processes? So these processes, these are the maintenance processes. Because why they are called as maintenance functions? Because they are continuously taking place in our body. So if we are sitting in the classroom also, they are taking place inside our body. If we are sleeping also, they are taking place in our body. So together they are maintaining our body. So these maintenance process takes place by the life processes. So they are called as life processes. Then which are the life processes? So there are four main important life processes in living organisms. That is, first one is the nutrition, then respiration, transportation, and excretion. So what do you mean by nutrition? So nutrition means the transport of the food. So that is the source of the energy, right? The organisms need energy for their activities. To maintain their body, they need the energy. The energy comes from the food. So the food is that is outside the body. The transfer of the food from the outside the body to the organism is called as a nutrition. So the nutrition, there are different types that we are going to study in the next part. Then what do you mean by respiration? So commonly, how do you define the respiration? Respiration means that is the taking in of the oxygen and giving out the carbon dioxide. Simply you are saying this definition, right? This is a simple definition. But what happens to the oxygen, which is what is the use of the oxygen which is taken inside our body? That oxygen used for the break down the glucose, so that is taken by the nutrition, right? So glucose that is present in our food, so that glucose will break down. When the glucose will break down, the energy will be released. So in the respiration, the oxygen used for the breakdown of the glucose, and it also releases the carbon dioxide. So that carbon dioxide is not necessary for our body, so that is expired from our body, and this energy is used for the various activities. So that is the respiration. So further about the respiration we are studying in the next part. Then what do you mean by transportation? So in plants, so there are many food products are synthesized by the leaves, by the process photosynthesis, right? So that should be transported to the different parts of the body, right? Transportation means, in simple words, so the transferring anything from one place to the another place, right? Transportation. But in the human body or in the plant, so transportation will take place. The food material which are synthesized, they are transferred to the different parts of the plant body, right? In same, in human body also, the nutrients which are absorbed by the digestion process, and some oxygen and carbon dioxide, that should be transported from one place to the another place in our body, right? So that is called as a transportation. So how it takes place, which organs are involved in it, so that we are going to study in the next part. Then what is excretion? So excretion means the removal of the unwanted products in our body, right? So this excretion, takes place in both plants and the animals. Unwanted products, they are excreted from the body, right? If it is accumulated in the body, so it may cause the some diseases. So how the excretion will takes place or transportation takes place in the single cell organisms. So single cell organisms, you know that. So single cell organisms, they have the only one cell which perform the essential activities for their life, right? So, for example, amoeba, how it excrete or how the transportation of the food takes place in the body of the amoeba, because only single cell is present in the amoeba, right? So it takes place through the body surface. In the living organisms, the excretion, the unwanted material excretion will take place through the body surface, and the necessary materials also transported inside the body through the body surface. They don't have any specialized structure for this because they are the single cell organisms, right? Then, so let us study about the nutrition. So what you mean by nutrition? So nutrition means the process of transport of the source of energy from the outside the body of the organism to the inside the body, right? So that is the food. So the source of energy is called as a food, right? The food is transported to the inside the body. So that is nothing but a nutrition. So to maintain the our body processes and to perform the different activities, so we need energy. Then how do the living organisms get their food? For example, plants, how they get their food? So plants, they take the carbon dioxide and some other materials from the soil like water and the nutrition, and they prepare their own food, right? So they are called as autotrophs. So they are not depending on the other organisms, but they use the materials from the environment. And some organisms, they depend on the some other organisms, plants or plant products, or some other organisms, they depend on the food, right? So these are called as a heterotrophs. So let us start the types of the nutrition. There are two types of the nutrition. First one is the autotrophic nutrition. So the name itself says that the autotrophs or autotrophic nutrition. So this process will take place in the plants. Plants are called as a autotrophs, right? So they use the substances from the outside the body, from the environment, you can call. So they use the carbon dioxide from the environment and water, mineral nutrients from the soil, and they have the chlorophyll in their leaves. So that is the very essential material which are present in the leaves and which gives the green color to the leaves, and it also absorbs the sunlight. Chlorophyll, that is meant for the absorption of the sunlight, and it convert the and it helps to form the carbohydrates. So using these all materials, it produces the carbohydrates. So that is the source of energy. That is the food which is prepared by the autotrophs. And this carbohydrates, so that is utilized as a energy in plant and which is not used. So that is stored in the different parts of the plant. For example, carrot. So carrot, what we eat, that is the stored food of the plant, right? So in animals also, we can see these process, so which are the energy which is not utilized, so that is stored in the form of glycogen. In our body it is called as glycogen, and in plant body it is called as a starch. Okay, so this is the autotrophic nutrition. Then, so this is the photosynthesis process. So what I explained, The plants use carbon dioxide, water, minerals, and the sunlight and chlorophyll. By using this process, they prepare the food that is nothing but a carbon dioxide. So in this video, this short video, we can observe the photosynthesis process, right? Then in the photosynthesis, there are mainly 3 steps. So it's very important. So in the photosynthesis, mainly there are 3 steps, that is absorption of the light energy by chlorophyll. So the chlorophyll which is present in the leaf, so which absorb the light energy. And in the second step, the light energy is converted into chemical energy, and water molecules are split into hydrogen and oxygen. So you know the formula of the water, right? H2O, right? So this H2O will break down and form the hydrogen and the oxygen. And reduction in the third step, reduction of the carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. So these are the main 3 important steps of the photosynthesis. Then, so if we see the chemical equation of the photosynthesis, so this is the chemical equation of the photosynthesis. Here, so the photosynthesis process takes place like this. Carbon dioxide plus water. So in the presence of sunlight and the chlorophyll, it produces the glucose. So this is the C6H12O6, that is nothing but a glucose. And it also produces the byproducts, that is the oxygen and water. Then what is this? 6, 12 and 6 like this. So this is the balanced chemical equation. So this is 6 represents, so 6 carbon atoms are there. So this balanced chemical equations means the number of molecules of carbon and oxygen, hydrogen, that should be same in the left side and right side of the equation. Both the side of the equation, so they should be balanced. So here 6 CO2, 6 carbon molecules. So here also C6. So 6 carbon molecules are there. And O2, and here 12O. Total 18 oxygen is there. So just calculate here, 18 oxygen is there. So 12 plus 6. So there are total 18 oxygen molecules are there. So like this, the photosynthesis chemical equation is balanced. So this equation represents the photosynthesis process. Then in the photosynthesis, the leaf is the very important structure. So that absorb the sunlight. So that contain the chlorophyll, right? So if we take the section of the leaf, cross section of the leaf. So cross section of the leaf that shows the structures like upper epidermis and lower epidermis. So if we take the cross section of the leaf, so when you observe it under the microscope, so it show the following structures. So that is the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis. So in between the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis, there are some cells are situated. So that cells contain the green color structures. You can observe these green color structures. They are called as chloroplast, which contain the chlorophyll, right? So that chlorophyll that helps to absorb the energy. And here guard cells are present, means so that is present in the stomata, the lower epidermis. So this is the structure of the anatomical structure of the leaf. So upper epidermis, lower epidermis, and some cells which are containing the chloroplast, and some air spaces are present, so that we can observe in the cross section of the leaf. And so for the photosynthesis process, so there is a main important thing is the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is present in the environment, right? So plants don't have the specialized structure like nose and all, like human beings. They don't have this structure set. Then how do the carbon dioxide enter into the cell, and how the oxygen is removed and oxygen is released from the photosynthesis process. So for this process in the leaf, there are specialized structures are there in the lower epidermis. They are called as stomata. Stomata are the openings. So what I said, in human beings, there is a nose, right? So for the exchange of the gases externally. But in the plants, so in the leaves, the lower epidermis contain the some minute pores. They are called as a stomata. So stomata that contain the different structures, that is called as a guard cells. These bean shaped structure, they are called as a guard cells. So these guard cells, they have ability to open and close, and this opening is called as a stomatal pore, and this green color structure, that is called as a chloroplast. So this is the structure of the stomata, very important for the 10th standard students. So many times they use to ask the question like this: draw the diagram of the open and closed stomata. So this closed stomata, so when it is closed, when the photosynthesis will not take place in the plant's body, when there is no photosynthesis process, the stomata is closed, the guard cells are closed like this. So you can observe the difference between the open and closed stomata. So these stomatas, so they are helping for the exchange of the gases through this pore. So the through this stomatal pore, the gases are exchanging. Carbon dioxide is going inside and oxygen is coming outside. So these stomata, they are not only for the exchange of the gases, so they also helps for the transpiration. So what do you mean by transpiration? So that is the loss of water from the plant leaves, right? So I hope you know one experiment. So that is keeping the plants, covering the plants by a plastic cover, potted plants that is covered by a plastic cover, and that should be keep under the sunlight. So after some time, it produces some water droplets on the surface of the that plastic cover. So how do that the water droplets come from? How they are produced? So that is nothing but the plant that lost the water through the leaf, so that is collected in the that plastic bag, right? So I hope you remember that experiment. I'm not going to explain that experiment. Okay, so here the stomatal pore, so that also helps for the loss of the water. So when the excess water is present in the plant's body, so that should be get lost by this stomata. Okay, so there is a question that is very important for the 10th standard exam. So write the functions of the stomata. They may ask this question: write the functions of the stomata. So for the first point is, so they helps for the exchange of the gases through this stomata, right? So that helps for the photosynthesis. And the large amount of the water can also lost through this stomata. Means the stomata that helps to remove the water, excess of water through the pores. And so for this process, there is a specialized cell present in the stomata that is nothing but a guard cells. So these guard cells, they are having the ability to open and close. So when the carbon dioxide start to enter inside the leaf, the guard cells open. When it is closed, there is no exchange of the gases. Okay, so this is about the functions of the stomata. So this is how the stomata works. So look at this video. So this is how there is the exchange of the gases takes place. Okay. Then, so already we have studied the autotrophic nutrition and photosynthesis and all, right? So another type is the heterotrophic nutrition. Heterotrophic nutrition means the organisms depend on the other organisms for their requirements of food requirements, right? So here in this picture, we can see the cow and the tiger also. So both are the heterotrophic organisms, right? Heterotrophs means depend on the other organisms. So here the cow is directly depend on the producer, that is the autotrophic plant, right? So the cow is depend on the plants, directly depending on the plants. They are called also called as herbivores. Not only cow, deer, rabbit, many are there. They directly depend on the producers. Producers means plants for their food requirement. So they are called as herbivores, and this is also type of the heterotrophic nutrition. And one more, see the tiger. So that depends on the deer and the other organism, which is not directly depend on the plants, which is depend on the other organisms, which is depend on the plants, right? So here the tiger is not only tiger, tiger, lion and cheetah, many are there. They are called as carnivores, right? These carnivores depend on the organisms which are depend on the plants. So these are indirectly depend on the plants. So this is also a type of the heterotrophic nutrition. And so in both herbivores and carnivores, so which are depend on the plants and indirectly depend on the plants, they completely eat the organisms and get digested inside the body. The food will get digested inside the body, right? So in this picture also you can observe the tiger that will take the deer completely into its body, right, as a food. But some organisms like mushrooms, yeast, and molds like fungi. So these species, what is the speciality of these species? They break down the food material outside their body, and after that they absorb. So that is a different types of the heterotrophic nutrition. And one more type of the heterotrophic nutrition is parasitic nutrition. Parasites means they depend on the other organisms for their food, right? But they will not kill the organism. For example, so in the first case, what we observe, the lion is or the tiger is killing the deer, right? By killing the organism, it is obtaining the nutrition. But in case of the parasitic nutrition, they are not going to kill the organism, but they absorb the nutrition from that organism. So tapeworms, which are present inside our digestive system, so they are not killing the humans, but they absorb the nutrition, they get the nutrition from the human's digestive system. And the leech is not going to kill the organisms. It just suck the blood. So blood is the food of this leech, right? So these are called as a parasitic type of the organisms. And there is a one more plant that is called as a cuscuta. So this is the cuscuta plant. So cuscuta, that is the parasitic plant. So very, very special and very, very important for your competitive and other exams. So you know that. So what I explained, commonly plants are, they are nothing but a autotrophs, right? So autotrophs means they are able to produce their own food. They are not depend on the other organisms. Here, but cuscuta that depend on the another plant. It absorbs the nutrition from the another plant. So this is also called as a parasitic plant. So it absorb the nutrients from the other plant. So this is also type of the parasitic nutritions. Okay. So this is about the heterotrophic nutrition. Then how amoeba get its nutrition? So in amoeba, Amoeba is the unicellular organism, right? So unicellular means only single cell is present. So that is able to perform all the activities which is essential for their body, right? So here, just observe this picture how the amoeba is obtaining the food. So here the amoeba, so that is not having the definite shape, right? So what you draw, that will become amoeba. So this is also a amoeba. So amoeba have the finger like projection, so that is called as a pseudopodia. So this is nothing but a pseudopodia, these projections. So this red color structure, that is a food particle, so that is present outside the amoeba's cell, right? So this pseudopodia, so that will get extend and cover the food particle like this. So in this picture, you can see how the food particle is covered by the pseudopodia and it is engulfed inside the cell. So inside the cell, so there is a food vacuole, so that helps to the digestion of the food particle, right? So like this amoeba get the nutrition. So this picture shows how amoeba looks under the microscope. So this is nothing but a pseudopodia and the food particle is here. So amoeba engulf the food particle by forming the projection around the food particle, and the food particle move inside the food vacuole and get digested inside the food vacuole, and the waste material, so they are excreted by the body surface. So this is how amoeba gets the nutrition. Okay. Next thing is how the nutrition takes place in the human beings. Nutrition in the human beings. So human beings, so they have the alimentary canal, so that starts with the tongue and ends with the anus, right? So alimentary canal, so this alimentary canal, so that helps for the digestion of the food and absorption of the nutrients. So how it takes place, so let us learn the human digestive system and the how food gets converted into a simpler form, so in this process. Okay, so the food what we eat, so that is a complex food, means that is not directly absorbed by our blood. So this complex food that should be convert into simple form, so then only our body absorb the nutrients. So in the nutrition what we are studying, the how the complex food is converting into a simple form. Okay, so let us start with the how the digestion starts with the mouth. So in the mouth, so when we eat the food, so the food, so that will be convert into small particles. The food will become small particles. So that is with the help of the teeth, right? So that is achieved by the crushing of the food with the our teeth. So that we know, so that is the externally, so when we eat the food, so that will become small particles, so with our teeth. So in our mouth, so there is a specialized gland that is called as a salivary gland, which is present just below the tongue. So when you think about the mangoes and all, so your mouth start to waters, right? So it is nothing, it is not a water, it is a saliva. So that water, so which is secreted inside our mouth, so that is not a water, so that is called as a saliva. So this saliva, so that helps for the digestion. So this saliva contain one enzyme that is called as a salivary amylase. Very important. So in our mouth, so there is a gland which secrete the enzyme that is called as a salivary amylase. So these enzymes, what are enzymes? Enzymes are the catalyst, means they are increasing the rate of the reaction, right? So these enzymes are increasing the digestion process. So this salivary amylase, So that helps to the breakdown of the starch which is present in the food into a simple sugar. So very important, in our mouth, so there is a gland that is called as a salivary gland, and this salivary gland secretes the saliva. Salivary gland, so that secretes the saliva, and saliva has the enzyme that is called as a salivary amylase. So what is the function of the salivary amylase? So they ask the question, what is the function of the salivary amylase enzyme? So that is, it helps to break down the starch. So that is the carbohydrate, right? So break down the starch into the simple sugar. So in the mouth, starch will convert into the simple sugar. So this is how the digestion takes place in the mouth. So very importantly, we should know about the glands and their secretion and their function. Okay. So next, the food from the mouth. So it moves to the stomach through the esophagus, that is also called as a food pipe. Esophagus, that is also called as a food pipe, and it contains some muscles that helps for the movement of the food material to the stomach. With the help of that muscles, the food reaches the stomach. Okay, so in the stomach, how the digestion takes place? So the stomach, so this is nothing but a stomach. In the stomach, what happens to the food, how the food is converting, that we have to study. Okay, so in the stomach there is also a gland, so the walls of the stomach that have the gastric glands, so they secrete the some secretions. So they are hydrochloric acid, that is also called HCl, right? So HCl, so that is the hydrochloric acid, protein digesting enzyme, that is a pepsin, and the mucus. So in the stomach, the gastric glands, they are able to secrete the hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and the mucus. So what are the functions of these hydrochloric acid, pepsin, and the mucus? So first question is, what are the secretions that is secreted by the gastric glands, that is the HCl, protein, and the mucus? And what is the function of these three chemicals? So here, hydrochloric acid, acid means that creates the acidic medium, so that helps for the action of the enzyme pepsin. So this pepsin, so that will get activated, so that is able to do its function when there is a acidic medium. Okay, but this pepsin, so what is the function of this pepsin? So this pepsin helps for the digestion of the protein. So this is the protein digesting enzyme. Then what is the function of this mucus? Very important. So this mucus, so that protects the walls of the stomach, inner lining of the stomach, from the acid. So because acid is secreting here, right? So that acid may cause the damage for the inner walls of the stomach. So this mucus, that is a jelly like substance, so that is helps for the protection of the inner lining of the stomach. So this is how the digestion takes place in the stomach. Only what you have to study, what are the chemicals secreted by the stomach, and what are the functions of these three chemicals. What is the function of the pepsin, what is the function of the mucus, and what is the function of the hydrochloric acid. I hope it is clear. So then next, the next step, with the help of the sphincter muscles. So there are some muscles are present here at the end of the liver part. So here, with the help of the sphincter muscles, the food moves to the small intestine. So this is the small intestine part. So it is the longest part. So in herbivores, the small intestine is very long, but in carnivores, the small intestine, so this is the small intestine, right? So this is the curved part. So the in carnivores, the small intestine is, the length of the small intestine is less, but in the herbivores, the length of this small intestine is long. Why? Because in the herbivores, they eat the plants which contain the cellulose, that is the complex material. So for the digestion of the cellulose, so it needs the extended long small intestine. But carnivores, so they do not eat the cellulose directly, so digestion is easy in the carnivores. So the length of the small intestine is small. Okay, so actual digestion takes place in the small intestine. So how the digestion takes place in the small intestine? So let us study the digestion in the small intestine. So the complete digestion takes place. So complete digestion of the carbohydrates, proteins and fats which are present in the food. So that takes place inside the small intestine. So very, very important part. So that is the small intestine. So this small intestine, it receives the secretion from the pancreas. So it secretes the pancreatic juice from the pancreas, so that helps to the convert the acidic food into the alkaline, because in the stomach the food became, so that is become acidic, right? So because of the hydrochloric acid, so when it moves to the small intestine, so it should get alkaline, so that will be achieved by the pancreatic juice. Okay, then it also receives the bile juice. So bile juice, that is secreted from the liver, so transported by the bile duct. Okay. So here it also receives, observe this picture. So here there is a gallbladder which stores the bile, and there is a liver. So inside the liver there is a gallbladder. Gallbladder stores the bile, and means the bile juice, and that bile juice is transported by the duct. Duct means pipe like structure. So that bile juice is transported to the small intestine. And what is the function of this bile juice in the small intestine? It helps for the digestion of the fat. The bile juice, the main function of the bile juice is, so that helps for the digestion of the fat. The large fat globules, so that will become small. So the fat are having the long chain, so that will become small chain because of the presence of the bile juice. So that help for the digestion of the fat. Okay, thus here you can observe the larger fat molecules become the smaller molecules in the presence of the bile juice. Okay, then pancreatic juice, the small intestine, that also receives the some secretion from the pancreas. So pancreas also you can observe here in this picture. So this is the pancreas. So pancreas releases the pancreatic juice. The first function of the pancreatic juice is, so that helps to the convert the acidic food into a alkaline food. And one more function is, so it contains the some enzyme. Pancreatic juice, it contains the some enzyme, so that is called as a trypsin. So the enzyme which is present in the pancreatic juice, so that is called as a trypsin. So that trypsin, that helps for the digestion of the proteins, and one more enzyme lipase, so that helps for the breakdown of the fat. So further digestion of the fat will take place by the help of the lipase enzyme, and further digestion of the protein will take place by the enzyme that is called as a trypsin. So again, the walls of the intestine, so the small intestine receives the bile juice from the gallbladder and the pancreatic juice from the pancreas, and it also, the intestine also is some juice that is called as a intestinal juice, And this intestinal juice that contains the enzymes that helps to the final conversion, that is proteins are finally converted to the amino acid, that is the simple form of the protein, and complex carbohydrates that converts into glucose, that is the simple form of the carbohydrate, and fats convert into fatty acids and glycerol. So by the help of the intestinal juice, because of the some enzyme present in the intestinal juice. So these are the simple forms of the protein, carbohydrates, and the fats. And these forms, these simple forms that can get absorbed by the walls of the small intestine, and it may reach the blood. So the walls of the intestine, so there is a absorption of these nutrients takes place. So here the complete digestion also takes place in the small intestine, and the absorption will also takes place in the small intestine. So how the absorption takes place? So there is a finger like projections in the walls of the small intestine. So here the finger like projections, so they are called as villi. So why they are having the finger like projections? Because these finger like projections, they help to increase the surface area for the absorption of the nutrients. So they are nothing but the villi. So it is also very important question. So what is the function of the villi? So that is the absorption of the nutrients, and it also increase the surface area. Okay, so this is how the digestion and absorption takes place in the small intestine. Then the next part is the large intestine. So how the digestion takes place in the large intestine? So there is no digestion. Already complete digestion takes place in the small intestine. Only absorption of some nutrients and large amount of the water will take place in the large intestine, and the remaining food material which is not essential for the body, so that is removed from the anus. So there is also a muscle that is helping, that is the anal sphincter, so that helps for the removal of the unwanted waste material from the body. So this is how the digestion takes place in the human body, and how the human beings takes the food. So here are the some questions which is related to the this part. So try to answer for this question. First question is, what are the difference between the autotrophic nutrition and the heterotrophic nutrition? And the second question, where do plants get each of the raw materials required for the photosynthesis? And third question is, what processes would you consider essential for the maintaining the life? So students, so in this session, so we learned about the life processes, in that how the nutrition takes place in the autotrophs, means in the plants and the animals, and how the digestion takes place in the amoeba and the human digestive system we have studied. Okay, so thank you. We'll meet in the next session.